Hey everyone, Magic Sword here, and full disclosure, this is a re-record because something happened with my mic during the last one, so it was totally unusable. So if I seem a little impatient, and if it seems like I'm rushing through this, it's because I've done it already. I try not to, but we're going to cut the fat on this one. So, first up we have, for Overload Shaman, Investment Opportunity. You might say it's just a good investment for Shaman in general. 1 mana, draw an Overload card. This is in the same vein as Double Jump. Double Jump is good as long as, Outcast is good. Therefore, this is good as long as Overload is good. And I think it is. I think Overload will do a very good job this expansion, especially given the special synergies it was handed, right? Like Overdraft, like the Quest, like Chagred Call. Yeah, look at that transition. Didn't see that one coming. So, it's a 3 mana spell, nature spell. Important to know it's a nature spell where investment is not, right? That's the one thing in holding investment back, is that it's not a nature spell. Charge Call discovers an X cost dominion where X is the number of Overload cards played. Well, it's a +1 because it starts at 1. It doesn't start at 0, right? So this is it's good enough, I think. I think it'll see play in the Overload package. My one concern is that it might be a little weak, as that's generally what people's concerns are. Because this needs to be at least summoning a 4 if you want to play it on curve, and that's not going to happen. So let's say you're playing it in the mid game, and I'd say at that point it's got to summon at least like a 5, maybe a 6, and that's like doable. But is it doable consistently enough for this to see play? I think this is going to be one of the lower performing cards in the deck, but I think it does make the cut. And we'll contrast that with a couple of other Overload cards that we'll see in a second. So, Canal Slogger is just a good card in general. It's given me 4 mana 7/7 vibes, right? Where it's 4 mana 6/4 that, you're throwing it at your enemy's minions with Rush and Lifesteal, and it only overloads 1, right? So it's not a perfect analog, but it's like this real beast on a 4-drop that you're going to want to curve this out, I think. But if you don't, 4 mana 7/7 kind of became a little lame if you didn't curve it out. But this helps you in the later mid game as well because of lifesteal, right? So this in a more controlling shaman, or maybe a mid range that like needs that last tool to survive, right? So the kind of the general consensus of a lot of these quests, right, is that you just need some extra time. You need cards that buy you more time, and I think that does that very effectively while also progressing the quest because it's an overload card. So Canal Slogger, I think, is a generally good shaman card, but specifically excellent in Overload Shaman. And I think Overload Shaman will be good. Now, of course, any claims about Shaman are pretty bold because, it's in a really good spot in the meta right now. Weapon/Elemental Shaman are both strong, depending on which variant. They're basically the same deck with like slight package differences. But I think this even fits into that, the Elemental Shaman, because it is an elemental, right? It's got a lot going for it. There are a lot of keywords on here that just kind of indicate it will be good in a lot of different shaman decks, right? And then our last Overload card, this is, I think, the weakest of the bunch. You know him well, Spirit Alpha, right? So it's a 4 mana 2/5. After you play a card with Overload, summon a 2/3 Spirit Wolf with Taunt. I dislike this because it doesn't have the kind of proactive nature of drawing, or the I guess the word is like iterative, or it doesn't take advantage of consecutive plays like the quest or like Charge Call do. This requires you to play the Spirit Alpha and then play at least one Overload card to make it worth it. Okay. So maybe you play Spirit Wolf Alpha and Lightning Bolt, whatever. Spirit Wolf Alpha, Lightning Bloom, and then another card, right? And the idea is that once you get one of those Spirit Wolves on board, one of those taunts, right? This is the same as the spell that summons the wolves, right? You get one of those on the board, Spirit Alpha is much more survivable. Well, okay, so you're probably not curving this out unless you specifically have Lightning Bloom. You don't want to rely on, right? So on 4, this is good. On 5 or 6, less so. Because you do need to play an Overload the turn you play this, otherwise it's going to get killed, almost certainly, right? Most classes have a way to remove this on curve. So I would say that this seems the weakest to me just because it relies so heavily on other things to happen in that same turn, whereas Charge Call relies on other things to happen, but over the course of the game. The quest, same deal, over the course of the game. Investment is just, it's a nice value cycles, right? So I would say that this definitely strikes me as the weakest, and I think it gets edged out by Charge Call in terms of, this sort of minion generation overload synergy type stuff. So you'll notice I did skip past a few cards that we did not yet cover. Our first is this is sort of a Battlecry package. I think they're sort of pushing with Hammerbeak. They're pushing a Battlecry shaman. Like that's its whole thing is it does battle cries. I don't think that'll work. But what I do think will work is a smaller Battlecry package in Elemental Shaman. So Auctionhouse Gavel is a 2-mana 2/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, reduce the cost of a Battlecry minion in your hand by 1. That is huge. I could see this replacing Whack-A-Null Hammer in the current iteration of Elemental Shaman, right? So maybe this is a one of, maybe you run 2, depends on how you feel about it. So imagine you're curving, right? Imagine you do your 1-drop, play this on 2, then you go into Canal Slogger, or sorry, Granite Forgeborn on 3, right? Because it's been reduced because it's a Battlecry minion. So this is a 4-mana 4/5. So Yeti stats with the Battlecry. Reduce the cost of elementals in your hand and deck by 1. Whoa, okay. Wow. Historically this hasn't been a great effect. Reducing the cost of minions or whatever. Mist Caller is kind of lame. Or, like getting that, because that gave you stats rather than reducing cost, right? But this, reducing cost specifically in Elemental Shaman, which has the ability to tutor out elementals, and like its card draw engine is based around nature spells and elementals, that's really good. So if you curve into this on 3, not only are you getting good stats for 3, you are allowing yourself to play a bunch of other elementals. And there are all sorts of things that this unlocks, right? Kindling Elemental is now a 0-mana reduce the next elemental you play by 1. So that's 1 more discounted, right? You will have all sorts of other, like Canal Slogger is now even more powerful, right? Because as you reduce those like low and medium cost cards by 1, as a percentage, you're reducing the mana cost much more than a high cost card, right? So getting value like that out of your really cheap minions can go a long way to just overwhelming your opponent. So as much as I am in favor of the quest, I can't help but think that Elemental Shaman, since it's already an established deck, just got a lot more powerful, right? I want to see the quest, I want to see Overload Shaman do well, but this might overshadow it. It's not clear to me. I think that there are definitely good arguments both ways, right? The quest is just very powerful. But this, we have proof of concept on this already because we know Elemental Shaman. We have a working Elemental Shaman deck already. We do not have a working Overload Shaman deck, right? So by being able to see that the currently existing package is getting support, I have quite a bit of faith in this pretty nuts deck to just like totally take off, right? Of course, so this and Overload Shaman and Hunter, right? Quest Hunter, I think are all going to be in like top slots in the meta, right? As well as like some control decks, I'm sure. But honestly, this I will say that this is definitely going to be a deck that is viable. I don't know if it's going to be tier 2 or tier 1, but it's definitely going to be viable. And that wraps up Shaman, right? So remember some of their other tools. They have Tiny Toys. That's, I don't know if that's good. But like they do have some other toys here that they can play with that aren't just Overload or Battlecry synergies, right? And remember there are Battlecries that are neutral that can really like take off with Bolner, right? So it's not totally shutting the book on pure Battlecry Shaman, but I am saying that I think Elemental with a Battlecry package is going to do better. So that wraps up Shaman, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to stick around for more videos, go ahead and subscribe. Check the playlist. And of course, tell me down below what you think of everything that we talked about here. Which shaman is going to be dominant, right? Or is it some sort of archetype that I'm not even imagining? All right, I'll see you in the next one.